Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Chase, aka That Gay Jedi, and welcome to another episode of Force Connecting, where I connect with other queer Star Wars content creators and talk about their relationship to Star Wars as well as the work they do within the fandom. Today, I had the pleasure of connecting with Rebecca, aka Pencilscratchins, one of my favorite fan artists in all of Star Wars, and I couldn't be more excited to share our conversation, so please enjoy. Hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. I'm good. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to just hang out and chat for a little bit because I love your stuff and I also just love you as a person.
The feeling is incredibly mutual.
Thank you.
This
Thank you.
this is just gonna be two people complimenting each other. Like,
Yes, it's very much going to be that. Okay, amazing. Well, so to start out, if you could just give us a brief introduction into how you got involved with Star Wars and just sort of brief overview of your entry point into the fandom and the whole franchise.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, to borrow Roberto Drawl's amazing metaphor,
Yes.
I was extremely late to the party. I read the invitation wrong. I was at the wrong house because I showed up next door because my parents are out and out Trekkies. Like they are well and true Trekkies, as you can tell
Hmm.
from the Deep Space Nine somewhere behind me. But so that was the sci-fi that we were introduced to, and I genuinely believe if the prequels had not come out in Y2K and the 2000s when me and my brothers were the perfect age,
Yeah.
I don't think they would have shown us Star Wars.
Because they're just diehard Trekkies.
They would die. Like my mother was in love with Leonard Nimoy. like
Aw.
yes, it's very sweet. But I do remember as a kid watching the trilogy and seeing the prequels in theaters. I think episode 3 was might be the first movie I ever remember seeing.
Hmm.
I was at the Dime Theater in our
So
hometown.
good.
I know, yeah.
That's
But
such a good movie too. I love that movie.
it's I rewatched it recently with my friend. I was like, "This movie slaps."
It really does. It
It's
really
amazing.
does. It's one of my favorites for sure.
It's so good. But I didn't get into it and into Star Wars honestly until late last year, maybe December, because my friend Brandon peer pressured me to watch The Mandalorian. And I literally fell down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And we watch so bullying works, is
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Peer pressure works.
Do not listen to your day officers.
Oh my god. Well, I had a very similar journey as you, where it's I watched a lot of the prequels as a kid and played a lot of video games for it, but it wasn't until the past couple years that I really got deeper into it. And Mandalorian was a similar entry point for me back into it as an adult. Yeah.
I I think it is almost designed to be that way because it's detached enough from the main
Yeah.
story, but
Yes.
then also it's God, I love Star Wars again.
No, absolutely. I agree. I agree. Amazing. Okay, cool. So then I like to ask about your queerness and when that came into the picture in a bigger way and how that's evolved alongside Star Wars and if the two have had any influence over each other.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, sexuality wise, I've been out since I was 16ish, which is
Mhm.
a long time ago because I'm 45 now. But so
45.
45, I look great.
You do look great.
I lesbianism for me has always kind of been the goggles through which I sapphic view all media.
Yes.
But getting into Star Wars as an adult has had this interesting effect I wasn't expecting, where it's kind of been the catalyst for this gender reevaluation. Because
Mm.
yeah, I rewatched the Clone Wars and I rewatched it alongside my brother. And I mentioned, I was like, man, I forgot how much I love Obi-Wan Kenobi. I was like, I love the way he speaks and the way he looks. And my brother reminded me, he was like, oh, well, when we were kids, when we saw episode 3 in the middle of the movie, I turned to my mom and I was like, I want to look like that. And she was like, Padme? The beautiful princess. And I go, no, 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 no. Obi-Wan Kenobi.
The power of Obi-Wan. I
The
love that.
power of Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
He made me genderqueer. But
Wow.
it became this kind of when he said that, it was something clicked in my head where I was like, oh, I've never really thought about how I don't know, my presentation and my identity has never felt wholly feminine or masculine. Somewhere
Yeah.
in that middle. So it's kind of been this this, like I said, like the catalyst to the
Yeah.
beginning of this gender journey that I'm still very much on. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, oh my God. I just love that. I love you. I mean, but I just think that is it's so amazing because I have had like similar experiences like as of late where I'm just like watching amazing characters and like a lot of times I think there is something. I mean, space is queer, Star Wars is queer. Like these things are just naturally queer. Um and I think that that combined with the quality of like character work that we see on screen and in pages and just anywhere in Star Wars, I think can like really provoke those kinds of like ways of thinking and conversations with ourselves. And I've had similar experiences. So that's rad. That's really cool.
Yeah, because like I started thinking, I think like you said, space is just queer. Because
Yeah.
like when you really think about it, like can we even assume that the Jedi have any sort of idea, like the same idea of binary gender as us?
Right.
You know, like is that ever explicitly said?
Right. No,
No,
it's not. No.
and therefore
Yeah.
doesn't exist.
Hey, that's canon for me. I agree. I completely agree.
Watch out, George Lucas.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Cool, cool, cool. So does your queerness, sexuality and gender queerness, do those have any impact on the work that you create as a fan artist?
Yeah, I think like generally as queer people, you know, I think we see um the world just differently because
Yeah.
like, you know, our experiences kind of shape how we consume things. And I think queer people are a lot more receptive to pick up on those like little bits and traits in the characters that resonate with us.
Mhm.
And also I think it affects the way that I use humor and like I make jokes and stuff because like queer people are just generally more receptive to the stuff I put out, you know?
Yeah.
Like I can make a joke that's like Las Vegas is on Tatooine, and gay people will be like, "Yes, I live in Nevada. I go to Tashi Station every day. You know, like I see it. Like C-3PO is my neighbor." As well, straight people will sometimes message me and be like, "Well, that doesn't make sense," and I'll be like, "It does if you're gay. I don't."
That is so funny. Yeah, I know. And there is something that is very like sort of transcends like words and logic and explanation that is just sort of like queerness. It's just queerness. Yeah.
Like I did an interview once where a girl was like, she's like, "Oh, I love that little." I did an animation with Ashoka like blasting Marina and the diamonds, and she was like, "Well, why did you choose that song?" And I was like, "I don't really know how to explain this." I was like, "Well, you know when you're like 14 and you hate the world and you're like, I'm gay, I'm so gay. Marina and the Diamonds is the only music." I don't know how to like verbalize that.
Yeah. Yeah, and yet it's such a universal experience for queer people. Absolutely. Oh my God, that is so good. Yeah, I oh, your work is so gorgeous. And it is so queer and like it's it's so like just unique and original and I just love it. It's such a breath of fresh air. Anytime I see your work, I'm just like, oof, I'm glued to it. So I love your
Thank
stuff.
you. Oh my
Yeah.
god. That's going right on my CV. So thank you.
Yeah, you can put me down as reference.
My good friend Chase.
Exactly. Okay, amazing. So what would you say your favorite part is creating fan art that you do?
That is like, oh, that's a tough one because like
Yeah.
part of me wants to be just like the whole process, except
Right.
for coloring. I hate coloring. But um I think if I had to choose, I think my favorite part is probably making Sapphic like WLW
Hmm.
because I think this kind of goes without saying there was a noticeable difference in how much WLW art is made versus MLM.
Yeah.
And obviously, I love my MLMs, you know,
Right.
I make them too, but
Right.
like, I think so often um, lesbian and sapphic art kind of gets pushed aside. And when it is made, it's this beautiful, like, you
Yeah.
know, like Art Nouveau, like the most gorgeous stained glass windows you've ever seen. But like, I think that lesbians deserve the chance to be idiotic morons,
I
which is
agree.
what I create. You know, so like I get a real big kick out of making like very silly like Ray Rose art or like
Yeah.
Bo-Katan Fennec art because it's like I want to give the same quality and same quantity
Yeah.
to like queer women as I think queer men often get.
Yeah, and almost like the same permissions in storytelling. Yeah, that are such a given with MLMs, but haven't been like they're not as commonly explored in WLWs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the other half of it as well is like in my offline life, I'm a scientist, and like one part of my job is I deal with remains and a lot of sensitive material, which you want to treat very respectfully. You know, even if you have fun at work, you kind of want to like tone it down a little bit. Um, but I'm by nature like a very ridiculous person, so when I come home and relax, I want to make art that is like fun and stupid, you
Yeah.
know? My
Yeah.
primary goal is to make my brother Pat laugh specifically because he's the
Oh,
funniest person I know.
it's so cute.
Well, he's like the funniest person I know, so I figure if I got him, probably golden.
Oh
And
yeah.
then my secondary goal is to just like anybody who sees it, I want their day just to be brightened because I'm a giver and I'm also America's sweetheart.
You really are though, and your art does do that. I can attest as a consumer of your work. Every time I see it, it brightens up my timeline, my feed, my day, all of it.
Yeah.
That's awesome too. About so, do you and your brother still watch a lot of Star Wars together?
Yes, I have like what I describe as like a swarm of brothers, and only one of them, who's ironically also gay, we're both like the dorkiest ones. So
Yeah,
like we text all the time. Last
I
night
love
we were literally texting about like the Clone Wars because he was rewatching the last season and he's like,
that.
I'm emotionally compromised.
Absolutely, that'll do it to you for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Okay, cool. So you mentioned like Ray Rose and Fennec and Bo-Katan. Are there any other like favorite ships that you have, or any other favorite characters or settings that you like to draw?
Yes, yes. I mean, I can't even like talk about Star Wars without talking about Din Luke, which was like, I
Hello.
mean, again, like you said, it's not even a ship; it's just canon.
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't even feel like a ship. Like I have characters, I'm like, oh, I ship them. But with Din Luke, I'm like, I can't ship them because they're already married. Like they
Like, oh, like I made like a Star Trek AU with it, and like I even like just thoughtlessly put in there. I was like, oh yeah, they're married, and people were like, oh, this is a Din Luke AU, and I was like, oh fuck, I forgot that's not canon. Oh.
Oh, that is so good. That is
Yeah,
so good.
they
I
really
love that.
are my fathers, my sons, the brothers I never had, the neighbors I never wanted.
I love it. Absolutely. Okay, awesome. So when it comes to your process, you said that, one of your favorite parts is obviously the whole process except for coloring.
Except for color.
Um, but when you start out your process, would you say that you have specific goals set at the beginning of your process, or are you more of a creator that kind of just draws on the fly and creates on the fly?
I'm it's like kind of a combination because like I have a giant note in my phone where anytime I have like a stupid thought, I will write it down. So
Mhm.
like that I can go back and kind of expand on it. I think my primary goal is I always want you to come away from the piece understanding the character in a way that maybe you didn't understand.
Mm.
Because like I'm about to sound very much like every college kid who's ever taken an improv class, so please forgive me. But I think that like comedy is like genuinely an underutilized form of character work, you
Yeah.
know? Because Star Wars has so many complex, interesting, very sad characters.
Mhm.
Obi-Wan, depressing lesbian who lives in the middle of the desert, sad. But I think by approaching it with a certain lightheartedness, I want people to almost like humanize those characters
Mhm.
and like walk away with it feeling like it's a little bit more accessible. It's easier for me to describe like Boba Fett as a guy who would give a baby some loose batteries and like change or whatever I said in my comic and like be like it's easier for me to describe him as like that kind of guy than I
Yeah.
think it would be for me to verbalize it in like a character essay. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Yeah.
absolutely. That makes total sense. And would you say that the inspiration for those moments come from anywhere specific? Like, do you draw from your real life, or is it just kind of coming out of nowhere?
Occasionally, it's just like I was like, "Oh, I think that's a funny joke. I'm just gonna do it." But like
Mhm.
the Boba Fett example specifically, when I posted that, my brother texted me. He's like, "Because our dad used to do that." Dad, our father is like a strange man. On our birthday or like on Christmas, he would fill like a stocking with oranges and like just trash, and be like, "Play with it." And like literally, I don't think I've ever seen him buy batteries. He just finds them and they're always in loose Ziploc bags.
Oh, That's great. That is so good. And would you say that like when we were talking about sort of your work where there is a certain reverence and seriousness that is expected in the workplace, would you say that fan art is like a way for you to like let out that bottle of chaos? Chaos bottle?
100%.
Great.
Yeah, it's like I'm sure you feel this probably when you film too. It's like it's kind of like an hour or two where I can just be as stupid and
Yeah.
goofy and not expect uh anyone to judge me on that. And when I
Yeah.
put it out in the world, I know people are gonna like use that as an opportunity to kind of do the same.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. No, I definitely feel that way. Like, I I try to keep like a good balance of things on my channel, but like when I did the rankings hot Star Wars characters, I was like so like grateful that people liked it because I was like, okay, great, so I can do more stupid stuff. Like
Yes.
I can do more dumb things. Like I like doing dumb things. So that was like a wonderful moment of like permission. So I was like, okay, we'll keep doing
That that video was like my Olympics, truly.
that.
I was like, yeah, I was like, literally, I felt like you know how people do like fantasy leagues for football. I was
Yes.
almost I was like, should I make a fantasy league before this video?
That
See how it compares.
That's a fun idea. That is a fun idea, honestly. Okay, well, thank you. Amazing. So, also another thing that I noticed that's very specific in your art is like a lot of storytelling and a lot of comic strip style. And I know that you have a few zines that are out. Um, where do you like? Do you have a preference over long term storytelling or short term storytelling?
I think anyone who says that short form is not easier is lying. Because like it is
Yeah.
yeah, it is so much easier, I think, to put out a couple of jokes and maybe like make a series, for
Hmm.
me at least, than it
Hmm.
is to make a longer narrative that feels cohesive and kind of feels uh, put together, I
Yeah.
guess, you know? Like, my dream, is I would love to be able to just, like, take a month and dedicate myself and, like, write a full comic, like, you know, maybe 20 to 50 pages and then, like, put that out.
Yeah.
But, you know, realistically, I think it's just for me, I get more inspiration, by being like, "Okay, I can limit these characters to this amount of jokes, and then I can move on so I don't get bored
Right.
to new characters." So like my zine, it's like it's a lot of like little pieces put together, and not
Yeah.
like there's maybe one or two like full page comics, but like more or less, it's like I want to give everybody a little
A little.
opportunity to
Yeah.
shine.
Yeah, and it's fun how they become sort of quilted together, all those little vignettes. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
Um, and how has your fan art impacted your experience as a fan?
I think I think any fan creator, it's kind of like we have this wonderful opportunity because when people see our content that's kind of like a stamp to be like, oh, this person likes Star Wars, I can talk to this person about Star Wars.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I think it kind of opens us up to people getting in contact like other fans or other content creators. Like when I first came on the Star Wars scene, so to speak, it was kind of at the same time that Ashley Gilroy, who's like the nicest human being alive,
Amazing.
and yeah, like I don't need to
Like
say,
literally queen of my
yeah,
heart. Absolutely. Yeah.
stands. Well, Ashley
We're
stands
both
for us.
probably her number one fans.
On it,
Yeah.
yeah. Honestly, yeah.
Absolutely. Wait, I have mine too.
Just send this to her out of
Exactly.
context. I was like, it was Ashley and Ngozi, who's like essentially Chris Claremont of our
Yeah.
generation, right? Like
Yes.
we were all making kind of Dinluke stuff and then like making jokes off of each other.
I love
And
that.
it very much felt like we were the three witches and the Disney Corporation's intellectual property was Macbeth. Like it really felt like we were like, okay, you're fun, you know, you enjoy whatever it is you're doing, killing the
Right.
king or whatever. We're gonna be over here making our little pot and having fun.
Absolutely.
Having fun. And it was
Oh,
like it was such a fun couple of months when we were all like making tons of Dinlu stuff because it was like literally people would message me and they'd be like, "Oh, I see you make a joke," and then I immediately check their blogs to see if like there were other jokes. So yeah, it was so fun.
so cool. I love the way that it can all like play off of each other. Everyone can just do that. Yeah. And it's really I think it's also just like a wonderful part about like the fan art world of fan art and fan art creators. It's just such a fun like collaborative space to be in, especially with like AUs and like ships and everything like that. It can get really playful and really funny.
So fun. And like the biggest compliment to me is when people will message me and was like, "Oh, I wrote a fic inspired by your and like can I send it to you?" I'm like, literally, there is nothing that is more meaningful to me. It's like, can you send it to me? Can I print it out and frame it?
I would do the same thing, honestly. Yes. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, I also have to ask because you brought up witches. There's a pumpkin behind you, and it's
Yes.
basically Halloween already. So, do you have any like Halloween like illustrations planned? Are you gonna bring some Halloween and some Star Wars together?
I'm really hoping because I am a giant classic horror movie fan.
Yes, me too.
Like,
Yep.
Reanimator, The Thing, like, I love it's so good. So I really wanna do some, like, just good, fun, maybe more AU-y kinda stuff, Return of the Living Dead, zombies, I don't know, but, like, I mean, it is truly the most magical time of the year. It is
I
gay
agree.
Christmas.
It really is gay Christmas. It's gay Christmas, it's gay Easter, it's gay birthday, it's gay Valentine's Day, it's just gay and it's everything.
It's everything.
It's gay
truly
pride, honestly. Yeah. Chicago actually moved gay pride to October. So we're gonna have a good little spooky pride that we've never had. So I'm excited.
that is pretty
Yeah.
that is Jack Skellington through the first book.
Yeah. Yeah, he did. That is so funny. Oh my god. Yes, I know. I have to like I'm like worried about it though. I'm like I have to have like 18 costumes planned. It's just gonna
Yeah.
be a busy October.
'Cause somebody is in their Chicago apartment right now with, like, 1,000 of the most gorgeous things you've ever seen.
Oh
Just,
yeah.
like, ready for this.
Oh yeah. And the cosplayer in me is really trying to just like hold my purse strings tight because I'm like looking at so many like amazing cosplays and I'm like, oh, I kind of want to do that, that, and that, and that, and that. But
Yes.
expensive hobby for sure.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. Amazing. Okay, cool. So you also mentioned wanting to discuss more of like the fandom with each other. So I'm always down to talk about Star Wars fandom. I love talking about Star Wars fandom. How have you found navigating the fandom as a queer creator?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think, I've been on the internet a long time, for my very young body. Like, I was here far too young. I was, like,
Yeah.
11 on LiveJournal fighting with adults.
Yes.
Definitely not okay. Yeah, but, like, being on the internet for as long as I've been, like, I've had a lot of negative fan experiences because the internet has not always been as queer friendly,
No.
even in our lifespan. So and even, like, back in 2016, 2017, I had made, like, one piece of Star Wars art, and it was about gay Luke, and, like, people were not nearly as receptive to it. They
Hmm.
were, like, sending me hate, they're like, "This is ridiculous, take this down." And me, 2016, I was, like, maybe, like, 17, 18, I was like, "Why is everyone being like this?" So it completely turned me off.
Yeah.
But this year, it's like I have had the complete opposite experience. I stumbled in completely by accident to this wonderful gay pocket of Star Wars
Yes.
Twitter.
Yes.
It's like, literally, everybody is hilarious, nice,
Yeah.
and just, like, they are, like, so supportive of everybody else. It is, like, one of the most positive fan experiences I've ever had, honestly.
I love that. I
Yes.
really love that. Yeah. I agree. No, like my like in that sort of like just gay Star Wars pocket, I even on Twitter, I'm like every time I log off or log on, I'm like, "Oh my god, hello friends and family." I'm just like, "Hi everyone." Like I just feel very connected, which is a cool feeling. Which I'm very grateful for in the fandom. And then okay, so what brought you back then? How like I know you mentioned like you stumbled sort of back into it, but I know but like yeah, like what sort of like enabled you or pushed you or motivated you to like move past what had happened earlier in your fan art?
Yeah, like, I had kind of been making it on and off, like, every once in a while, like, I'd make, like, one loose piece of
Mhm.
Star Wars art. Um, but when I watched season 2 of The Mandalorian and Luke appeared, obviously, spoiler
Mhm.
alert to
Oh,
anyone who
yeah.
hasn't seen that. Cool. But, like, uh, I guess if you follow me, though, you probably already know Luke was in The Mandalorian. Just put that
True.
together.
Fair.
Yeah, but afterwards, like, I went online and everyone was so just excited about Din Luke and excited about like gay Luke in general. And it was like it was as if I had like it was that scene in Community where I left to go get the pizzas and then I came back and everything was on fire. It was like a completely different room when I walked in. So
Right.
it was like suddenly I think there were I think people who are younger than us, the generation below us, are much kinder, much smarter, and much um, more online literate than our
Yes.
generation was. So I think they created kind of this foundation that then I could come into, and I just felt like the reception was completely different.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah,
So Din Luke was sort of like, or Luke's appearance was sort of like your window back in, where you're like, oh, this is like I can do this now and be celebrated for it. You know what I mean? And not be taken down for it.
exactly. It
Yeah.
was like I'm kind of entering this fan space that's like I think gonna get my sense of humor a lot more.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And also about like sort of just like younger generations or just younger crowds on the internet. I also feel like they're a lot more like willing to, and open to like listen to different interpretations of characters and like stories and like and enjoy it for what it is. And if it's not their vibe, it's not their vibe and they move on instead of like being like, take that down. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like
my god, yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So that's also a really beautiful sort of shift that I think that's been happening too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And like, you know, even on like the flip side of that, Star Wars and Star Trek too, I think are lucky because we do have people who've been here for decades. You
Yeah.
know, like your co-host over at Pink Milk, it's so which is like, oh my
We
god.
love.
By the way, congratulations also,
Thank
because
you.
like
I appreciate it. Thank you
amazing.
so
Because
much.
it is my favorite podcast. It's incredible.
Thank you.
But
Yes, the Pink Milk Crew. Yeah, we love.
I mean,
Thank you.
how could you not
I
love, right?
know. I know.
Yeah. But hearing from people who are a little bit older and like established and married and queer people who like have their lives together and still love Star Wars and still love fan works with the same sort of like excitement, it's like it's very comforting to me as like a young, hot, young
Yeah.
person because it's like I just had to slip that in there.
No,
Uh
you yeah, absolutely. It's a well-deserved slip in, by the
I mean,
way.
come
That
on.
was
It's
well-deserved. Look at your
too
hair
public.
today.
Stop it. But it's like as cheesy as it sounds, it's like they've kind of like created something that was here long before us, and it's
Yes.
gonna exist long after us, and we get to be kind of this put of a long legacy, and there's something really sweet and beautiful about that.
Yeah. No, I think that's such an awesome point because like it's like all these queer Star Wars fans who've been fans since the beginning of Star Wars as a franchise, like they I think most if not all of them have found and celebrated so many queer parts of Star Wars and like so many like just like yeah, so many queer parts of Star Wars, and what's awesome is, like, they they made so many things possible outside of Star Wars too,
Yes.
of course, but, like, within Star Wars fandom, like, they continue to make so much possible, and then we get to come in and sort of, like, go even further with it and louder and bigger and brighter and more colorful, and
Yes.
then we all get to do it in conversation with each other, and yeah, it's a cool thing. It's a
Absolutely.
really beautiful sort of, like, process.
100%. And like I'm very interested in like fan history because it's so interesting, to
Yes.
think about like even before, especially before the advent of the internet,
I was gonna
when
say, yeah,
when
yeah,
zines were really like the only way that you were able to talk to people, and especially queer zines, like I'm sure Luke and Han zines, um, that was not something that was going to be easily accessible, and there was true risk in
yeah,
creating those and sending those out and receiving those. So I think about how genuinely lucky we are to be able to just like hop online and openly, put our faces next to this and be
yeah.
like, we are gay and we love this little fruit and his name is Luke Skywalker. Like, it's like,
Absolutely.
you know,
Yeah, that's an amazing way to put it. I agree, and it's always an important reminder to like take that moment and be grateful for it. So thank you. I think that's
thank
great.
you.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. So more about the fandom. Like, what shifts have you seen? Obviously, like a big shift being like your sort of like your 2016 that when you were drawing and stuff like that and drawing now. But are there any other like sort of like evolutions that you have seen in the fandom or that you currently feeling in the fandom?
That's a great question. Um, I think honestly, the thing that I've seen in a couple of fandoms in the last couple of years has been kind of like this increasing comfort in completely ignoring the canon, or like allowing the canon to kind of exist entirely separate of fan
Mhm.
works, which I think is very healthy,
Yes,
honestly.
yes,
Yes.
yes, I agree.
Because when I think realistically, like, I think this kind of began, if I had to theorize, as if I was some sort of historian, as if I was Milo Thatch from The Lost Adventures. I think that kind of began after Finpo did not become canon, you know? Because
Yeah,
I think that really affected a lot of people,
yes,
obviously, because it's something that so many people really saw themselves in.
absolutely.
So I think when that did not become canon, I think people kind of began to get a lot more comfortable with just being like, okay, well, that Star Wars can exist and I can love it, but I can have my
Mm,
own and like I can share that with other people and it doesn't have to affect the canon Star Wars or even their personal readings of Star Wars.
yeah,
You know? Like
that's
I can love people's like Luke Lando walk without that having to affect,
right.
how I read it.
Right. Yeah, no, that's I think that's such a good point about Finn and Poe. I think that had a huge impact on it. And also what's kind of nice what's happening right now with Marvel is I feel like Marvel is also encouraging Star Wars fans to continue that way of thinking of like kind of loosening the grip that we have on what is canon, what isn't canon. And of course, like Star Wars Visions is gonna only
Yes.
add to that where it's like people are going to be watching these incredible stories and this amazing animation and not have to worry about canon. And
Yes.
I think like the general like zeitgeist of the fandom is going to be like, okay, more of that, more of not caring. You know what I mean?
Yes,
In a
please.
healthy way, just like enjoying Star Wars for being Star Wars. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Like, I think so much because like, I obviously am, like, a huge Obi-Wan Kenobi stan. I have his lightsaber back there. I have 2 of his lightsabers back there,
Yes, you
but, like
do.
yes. Um, like, I'm a huge Kenobi stan. I'm so excited for Kenobi. I have my own ideas of what happened to him when he went to Tatooine, you know?
Hmm.
And, like, one of which is he becomes very hostile friends with Peli Motto. But, like,
I
which
love that so much. Yes.
and, like, I would love that, anything close to that happened. But also,
Yeah.
I'm completely fine. And I think, I've been kind of like this way because I'm a youngest child, so I never listen to anybody. But like, I've been this way kind of how I've always consumed fan art. So now I'm happier that like I can kind of see that in other people because
Hmm.
I would always get worried, especially when younger people, teenagers would put so much credence in what was canon. They would be
Hmm.
like, if doesn't become canon, I can't continue to enjoy it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, really, none of this happened. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Luke is not real.
Yeah.
So if you see him as gay or you see him as bi, you see him as trans, don't let anything that uh, the actual movies say or deny affect how much that means to you
Yeah.
because it can be personal and you can still enjoy that while also loving the source material. I'm sure I just said the same thing over and over again.
No, but that's such an important thing, and that's also something that like even like I'm working on as I like as people are rumoring Mara Jade and all this other
Yes.
stuff, and I'm like all that kind of stuff, and it's like I think what you hit the nail on the head in the sense of like allow your fandom to exist on big scales, but also like treasure it on a personal level and let it be like sort of like a sacred communal thing that you have for yourself and with yourself and by yourself, on top
Yes.
of again in relationship with other people. But I think that's a good reminder, and I also think that that's something that comes a lot easier for fan artists and fan fiction writers like
Yeah.
M from Pink Milk. We were kind of talking about that last week, where it's like they like I feel like people who create in fan fiction and fan art already like just allow themselves to play and allow themselves to have very separate, healthily separate relationships
Yes.
with Star Wars and canon. And almost canon almost isn't even a word in the best way. It's just all Star Wars. It's just
Yes.
stuff, Star Wars stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because it's like we have that creative freedom where sometimes like people joke like there's an ongoing joke on my channel that's like it's the PCU, which sounds incredibly egotistical to say aloud. But it's like, oh, the pencil scratching cinematic universe both. But like,
Yeah.
it's like I can have my own viewing and other people can enjoy that viewing as well. So
Yeah.
it's like, people can sort of see fan artists and fan fiction creators as like almost the same level of canon as like some people view comics, you
Right.
know?
Right.
Yeah.
No, totally. Almost like deflating the significance, and not in a disrespectful way, of what exactly is like what's coming out of Lucasfilm specifically and what's coming out of fandom. So like raising the dialing up the fandom volume and then dialing down a little bit on like what's specifically coming out of Lucasfilm and allowing those all to exist on the same plane. I love that. That's like, I'm gonna work on that. I'm gonna
That
get
one
better at it. Yeah.
little lockbox up there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Amazing. Okay, well, is there anything else that you wanted? I could literally talk to you, by the way, for like probably a week straight. No sleeping, no nothing, just talking. But is
No,
there
I feel
anything
the same. I feel the
is there
same.
anything else you wanted to get into?
I mean, one thing is like, we kind of talked a little bit about no emails, like kind of what we want the fandom to grow even into,
Yes.
right? You know,
Yes.
and I think really we're already at such a good place that I just hope the fandom becomes even more loving and even more accepting
Yeah.
as we go. Like, I want a completely queer friendly, completely POC friendly,
Yes.
female friendly space.
Yes.
You know, because I think there's still every once in a while I see something that seems like it's straight out of 2011. It's
Yes.
like
Yes.
especially in the pink milk replies. Sometimes people, it's like, first of all, how did you find this?
Yeah,
What?
I know. Why you really must have gone out of your way to send that tweet. Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
love, like, every once in a while a dude will be like, will retweet something and just be like, ew. And then like I'll reply to it. I'll be like, what do you mean by this?
Yeah,
Like,
let's unpack that you a little bit.
hey, buddy, let's unpack this. And like, he'll be like, well, you don't even know about Star Wars. I'm like, I never claimed to.
Yeah, and yeah, oh, yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Just less like, and not to throw the G word around, but a little bit less gatekeeping would be
Yes.
nice. Yeah, I agree.
A little bit more girl bossing, a little bit less.
Yeah, just swap one G out for the other would be perfect. Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think that we've seen a lot of like pushes for that kind of awareness and acceptance and like love in the fandom. But I obviously hope for that to continue. And I also like to think that as the stories, and for the canon sticklers, which is okay, everyone can enjoy canon however they want to, but for people who like really want that, as long, if we're getting increased representation in those stories, then I think that would eventually over time bleed well into the fandom as a whole, into like, yeah.
Absolutely, because I think you're right. If there's queer characters in canon, or even just like more female, more POC characters, I think that will facilitate a larger community that sees this as a legitimate reading.
Right, which is wild that we even have to like wait for that and need
Yeah.
that, but it is that there's a reality to that, and
Yeah.
then people who are so quick to say, well, you don't know Star Wars, have to stop and think and be like, oh, well, they're, people like her, people like them are all, they're in Star Wars, so like
Yes.
they're part of the conversation. So
Yes.
as much as like, we as much as like we don't need that as like queer fans, and as like, as like other kinds of fans, as much as like we don't need that, we also need that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like this weird thing where it's like we don't need to wait for someone to give us our power, and
Yeah.
POC fans and women fans, they don't need to wait for that kind of power, but that kind of power is welcome, and we do need that
Absolutely.
in a lot of ways, like that's what the representation is. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I think, sometimes in a weird way, queer fans are kind of not spoiled because that's definitely not the right one. But like we're kind of primed to approach all media being like, I'm probably not going to see myself in this. So
Yes, oh,
it's
for sure.
yeah, it's up to me to go and make this something that I respond to,
Yeah.
Like people back in like the 70s, I don't think gay men were going to see it, and like I don't think they were expecting to see Han and Luke kiss, but I don't think that bothered them. I
No.
think a lot of straight people, and straight men particularly, are very used to just taking everything at face value, so they don't always,
Yes.
encourage themselves to do deeper analysis, because like to
Yes.
them they don't need to walk to relate to like Vin Diesel, you know, because Vin
Right.
Diesel already looks. I
That's
don't
yes.
know why I went Fast and Furious with that.
No, I know exactly why you went because we're gay. And I've heard Fast and Furious is very gay. Ashley always talks about how gay Fast and Furious is.
It's shockingly homoerotic.
Well,
It,
it's so funny because it's like kind of going back to like the deeper analysis. It's like clearly the deeper analysis isn't there because if you were actually analyzing what you're watching, you would see how gay it is.
yes,
Yeah.
it's all about family.
Yeah.
God, yeah. But yeah, you know, so I think it is like, you know, they see Vin Diesel. They don't really need to do any further thoughts to
Yeah.
relate to Vin Diesel. So it's like I want to encourage those sort of analytical skills in people who might not necessarily, you know, quote unquote need them, you
Yes.
know?
That's
Yeah.
what it's an incredible point. And I also like think back, sorry to keep bringing up Marvel. This is not a Marvel show, but like
I kept
when
bringing up Star Trek. You're good.
okay, great. Everything is on the table. But in the Loki, when Loki addressed his bisexuality or pansexuality, however anyone wants to read it, you know, it's just as a queer person consuming media, I forget that I do so much analytical work while watching things to find myself and to find queerness in a project. And so to have it so pretty explicitly just put in front of me in conversation, like acknowledging Loki's queerness, I mean, I was just like, it was, I mean, it's very emotional, but I also was like, I just like, in that one moment, in that one scene that I went back and watched like 4 times, I got to sit back and be like, oh, I don't have to like work to find the queerness. It's there.
Yes.
And that was like such like
Yes.
a oddly an odd relief that I didn't expect to have. Yeah.
I had like a very similar experience to bring up a fandom that's also not Star Wars. in, in Star Trek Discovery, it was the first time there was a main cast queer couple.
Yes.
And in one of their scenes together, they literally say, My Dear Doctor, which was a reference to an extremely popular fanship from Deep Space Nine, where a character, Garak, would call another character, Julian, My Dear Doctor. And people really wanted that ship to become canon in the 90s, but
Hmm.
the producer at the time would not allow it.
Hmm.
So the fact that, you know, this newer iteration from the first episode already had a queer couple that I could see myself in,
Yeah.
and then further a queer couple that was in a weird way paying homage to the work that queer fans put in. It was
Yeah.
like I won't lie, I cried a little bit.
I might have shed a tear or
A
four.
couple.
Yeah.
Might have had to pause the TiVo.
Couldn't see through the tears. Yeah. Oh, no, that's a
Yeah,
beautiful point. Yeah, and yeah, again, it's I forget, yeah, just that sense of relief, just being able to just enjoy it without having to work to find the
absolutely.
queerness. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome. That's
yeah.
beautiful. Well, thank you so much for hanging out. I really am so grateful, and again, I just love hanging out with you. So thank you.
You too. Literally, anytime. I am uh literally have no friends or plans. So
Perfect. Well, then I'll see you same time next week. And that wraps us up for another episode of Force Connecting. A huge thank you to Rebecca for all the work you do in the fandom, as well as for taking the time to sit down with me and share your incredible thoughts on Star Wars and fandom and art and everything. I said it before and I'll say it again. I could talk to you for days. So thank you. If you enjoyed today's video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel because I do put out new queer Star Wars content every other Friday. And be sure to check the description below for links to all of Rebecca's socials. Thank you so much for watching. It really means the world. And may the Force be with you always.